Hello, my name is Diana Thomas, and I'm going to demonstrate how to use the placental fetal growth curve calculator. So in general, what the growth curve calculator does is it gives you a predictive curve for fetal weight, which is this graph on the left, where the days of pregnancy are on the x-axis and the fetal weight is on the y-axis in grams, and placental volume, which is the graph on the right, where the days of pregnancy are again on the x-axis, and the placental volume in milliliters is on the y-axis. Now, with biologically meaningful parameter values, which are on the top where we can input and change them around, we can see the immediate effect and prediction curves generated for both fetal weight and placental volume. So what I'm going to do is go through each one of these parameters and explain what they mean and show you the effect on the graphs below. So I'm going to start with this value R, which represents the early growth of the placenta. And we know from testing against experimental data that the value of R lies between 0.01 to 0.04 with an average around 0.03. So I have the average value in here right now, but I'm going to make that a little bit lower and show you the effect. I'm going to actually put this to 0.75, which is the known value for beta. When I change this to 0.02, let's go back to 0.03, you see that the fetal weight goes down. So at term, now the baby is smaller than if I had that baby at 0.0, at that R value at 0.03. And lowering it even further yields a very small baby at term, which is under 1,000 grams, which is probably too small. So this combination of parameters would probably not yield a viable baby at term. Now if I raise this back to 0.03, you can see that the other parameters also affect the baby's weight and the placental volume. For example, the second parameter that I'm going to discuss is this K, which represents the carrying capacity of the placental volume. And basically it's the self-limiting value where placental volume cannot go above. Now, if I raise that to our high end, so this value ranges between 378 milliliters to 850 milliliters, if I raise that value to, let's say, 600, you see that the placental volume has gone up, and you see over here, we have, at term, a larger baby than what we had before. So the value of K, although it's related to the placenta, it also affects the fetal weight, and we can see that impact right away. Now I'm going to lower it back down to the average value, which is around 500. And next I'm going to go to this value beta. Now beta is a very interesting value. It is there's a fetal placental scaling law that is held to very tightly at term, and this has been validated in a large number of pregnancies. And we know that beta theoretically should be at 0.75. Now, in experimental data, that beta actually ranged from 0.66 to 0.89, but not all of these pregnancies were healthy. In fact, values of beta that are off are related to placental inefficiency. Now, if I lower this just a little bit, it's very, very sensitive to beta changes. You see that the weight of the fetus has gone very high. And if I raise it just a little bit, let's make it 0.78, you see that the weight of the fetus now is pretty low at the end compared to what it was before. So beta is a very important parameter, and we can actually calculate it from ultrasound data. Now realize that these three parameters are linked to each other. So a change in one is actually reflected. I mean, there's some combinations of R and K and beta that are just not possible. So they're really linked to each other in a very unique way. Now, here we have the initial time in days. What that means, and we have 84 days plugged in there, but that really stands for the first clinical visit where you get measurements. And let's suppose that it wasn't 84 days, but you got your first measurement at 70 days of gestation. Then I'd put 70 in there. And let's say that fetal weight was a little bit lower at 70 days. Let's say it was 15 grams. or I guess we have put in 25, but let me put in 15. That initial value of the fetal weight does affect the trajectory, and that makes sense. Wherever you start is going to change where you end up at. And we also can get a initial placental volume in that first reading too, and I can change that. Let's say I had a bigger placental volume initially, and you see that placental volume graph changing. But since I have it self-limiting at 500, it's still confined and self-limited by 500. Now at the bottom, you see the data is for weight and volume is given to you numerically. So that data can actually be copied and pasted and dumped into an Excel file. And this completes the demonstration of this calculator. If you have any questions on how to use the calculator or anything about the information it gives you, feel free to contact me at thomasdia@mail.montclair.edu.